when silver blue eyes cut through the darkness of the forest, locking onto Kayla's. Something inside her shatters, a crack she didn't know was there. She's the Wolfless, untethered from the packs that rule this world. And yet, in that instant, a pull she can't resist drags her toward a destiny she never imagined. If you've been searching for a werewolf romance that hits different, you just found your pack. Like this story. Leave a comment, subscribe so you never miss a chapter. Your pack is waiting. Chapter 1. The Savage Daughter. Selena catches me the moment I step out of the market. Naturally. She has a gift for appearing exactly when I have somewhere better to be, inserting herself right where I don't want her. She's been doing it since we were 12, and I used to dread it. Now, I almost admire her persistence. She's standing with Melissa, which is how Selena always stands, because Selena alone is just a woman with opinions. Selena with Melissa is an event. Kayla. She says my name like she's identifying a stain. I stop walking, not because I want to, but because I've learned that trying to walk past Selena without acknowledging her only makes whatever comes next last longer. Better to get it over with. Selena. I say her name the same way she said mine. She doesn't notice. She never does. Her eyes move over me, starting at my boots, traveling up the dress I made last week from deep rust wool and cream linen, arriving at my face with an expression that sits somewhere between confusion and affront. I watch the familiar calculation happen behind her eyes, the math she's been doing since we were children. How does she look this good? How does she always look this good? What is she doing that I'm not? And why does that bother me so much? I don't give her time to finish the equation. You look tired, I say. It isn't a weapon. It's the truth. There are shadows under her eyes that her powder hasn't quite covered, and a tension around her jaw that I recognize. The kind that comes from clenching your teeth through things you won't talk about. Something flickers across her face, gone before I can name it. I look fine, she says, then pivot. I heard you have a full roster of clients this month. Must be nice. She tilts her head, being useful for something. I've heard variations of this for 12 years. The particular flavor changes. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's talented, sometimes it's the word pity deployed with surgical precision. But the structure is always the same. Find the thing I have. Call it something smaller than it is. Wait for me to flinch. I don't flinch. I think so, I say pleasantly. Though I imagine it's hard to appreciate usefulness when you've never had to develop any. Melissa makes a sound. Selena's jaw tightens. You know, Selena says, voice dropping into the register she uses when she wants to sound casual and doesn't quite manage it. It's interesting. You dress like a noble. You talk like you own the room. You've got clients lining up. A pause, deliberate. And yet you're still unmated, still practically human. Don't you find that embarrassing? There it is. I've been waiting for it. The practically human. The reminder that I don't have a wolf or not one anyone can confirm, which in Snowfield is the fastest way to reduce a person to a footnote. I've been hearing it since before I understood what it meant. I've built my life around it, actually. Around the space it carved out for me, around the particular freedom that comes from being written off. I look at Selena, really look at her, at the powder that doesn't quite cover the shadow under her left eye, at the way she's holding her right arm slightly away from her body, at the careful angle of her sleeve. No, I say, I don't find it embarrassing. I let a beat pass. Though I imagine I would find it embarrassing to show up somewhere with bruises I'm trying to hide and use the word pity on someone else. I keep my voice even, my expression exactly what it was before. But that's just me. The silence that follows is the specific silence of a stone dropped into water. Melissa goes very still. Selena's face does something complicated, something that starts as fury and then shifts, briefly, into something raw and undefended that I wasn't expecting. I wasn't trying to wound her. I was trying to stop the performance. I think it worked. I'm not sure that makes it better. Take care of yourself, Selena, I say, and I mean it. and I walk away before either of us has to figure out what to do with that. I go to the forest because I always go to the forest, not right away. I walk home first, finish the hem on Mrs. Aldrin's order, feed the cat who has decided my doorstep belongs to her, eat something I won't remember eating. I do the ordinary things with the mechanical efficiency of someone whose body knows the evening routine by heart while the mind is elsewhere. The mind is with Selena's face, with that undefended thing I saw in it for half a second. My grandmother used to say that the sharpest tongue cuts the holder too, if you're not careful. I used to think she was talking about restraint. I think now she was talking about something else. About the particular way it felt to land a blow on someone who, underneath the performance, is already bleeding. I change into my worn walking trousers and my heaviest cloak, and I go into the forest before the dark gets complete. The trees here are old. Older than the pack. Older than the name Snowfield. Older than most things with names. They have a quality in the evening that they don't have in daylight. A presence, almost, a kind of slow attention, as though the forest is aware of the people moving through it, and has opinions it keeps to itself. I've always felt it. I've never said so, because saying I think the forest is watching me in a pack that already considers me borderline human is not a move I recommend. I walk until the lights of Snowfield disappear behind the tree line. Until the only sound is my boots on frost-hard ground, and the distant conversation of owls. Until my shoulders come down from wherever they've been living, since Selena said practically human in that particular tone. I sit on the root of a chestnut tree that has been falling at a glacial pace since before my mother was born. I breathe. And then I hear it. Not a sound, exactly. More like a change in the quality of the silence. The way a room shifts when someone walks into it, even before you turn around. The awareness of something large moving with a precision that makes no noise. I don't run. Running is for people who haven't spent enough time in this forest to know that running from something that can move that silently is both futile and rude. I turn. The wolf is enormous. I've seen wolves in this territory before. Pack members mid-shift, border patrols moving through at dusk. This is something else. This animal is the largest I have ever seen, and I grew up in a shifter pack, which means my scale of reference is not small. Its coat is dark as the space between stars, and it stands at the edge of the tree line with a stillness that I recognize irrationally as intentional, as considered. And its eyes are silver blue, not the pale blue of winter sky or the cold blue of certain stones. Something deeper. Something that catches what little moonlight exists and turns it into something else. Into a color that doesn't have a name, that sits between silver and ice and something older than either. I look into those eyes, and something in my chest does something I wasn't consulted about. It isn't fear. I'd recognize fear. Fear is a cold thing, a contracting thing, a thing that makes the body want to be smaller. This is the opposite of that. This is opening. Some interior door I didn't know existed swinging wide on its hinges, and something warm and wordless coming through it. My ribs actually ache with it. Hi, I say, because what else do you say? The wolf looks at me. Just looks. With that particular quality of attention that I've spent my whole life wishing humans would occasionally apply. The kind that means I see you and only you. It doesn't approach, it doesn't retreat. Then it turns its great head, a slow, deliberate movement, and looks at something behind me and to the left, into the deeper trees, where the forest gets thick enough to block the sky. Then it looks back at me. You want me to follow you? I say. It's not a question. I know the answer. I've always been good at reading animals, better than I am at reading people, honestly, which I've chosen to interpret as a feature rather than a flaw. The wolf turns and walks into the trees. I follow. The space is extraordinary. That's the only word. I step through a gap in the tree line and the world opens. A circle of ground maybe 20 strides across, ringed by trees that have grown at angles as though leaning away from the center, as though making room for something. The sky above is entirely clear. Stars I can't see from Snowfield's outskirts blaze overhead, and the frost on the ground catches and holds their light until the whole clearing glows with a dim, sourceless luminescence. I've been in this forest 100 times. I've never found this place. The wolf sits at the far edge of the clearing, watching me take it in. I stand in the center and turn slowly, and there's that feeling again. The open door in my chest, the warmth coming through. And for the first time in as long as I can remember, I'm not thinking about the hem on Mrs. Aldrin's order, or the comment Selena made, or the endless low-grade arithmetic of being Kayla Freeyard in Snowfield. I'm just here. I've lived in this territory my whole life, I say, to the wolf, to the clearing, to whoever arranged the stars in exactly this configuration. I didn't know this existed. The wolf watches me. I sit down on the cold ground, right there, in the center of the clearing, because why not? My trousers are already going to need washing, and there's something in this place that makes formality feel faintly absurd. I had a bad evening, I say. The wolf continues to watch me, ears forward, present. Someone said something unkind, and I said something back that was accurate, but probably not entirely kind either. And I'm not sure which part is bothering me more. I pick up a frost-stiff leaf and turn it between my fingers. I used to think being good with words meant winning arguments. I think maybe it means something else. Silence, the good kind. I don't have a wolf, I say. In case you were wondering, I'm the only person in my pack who doesn't, which makes me... I search for the right word. Exceptional in a way nobody seems to appreciate. A short laugh. I used to mind it more. Now it's actually... fine. Comfortable even. Because if I had a wolf, and I had a mate, then someone would be able to sense everything I keep in here. I press my hand briefly to my chest. All the places where I'm still 12 years old and Selena has me in a corner and I don't know why she looks at me like that, and I'm deciding right then that animals will be better company than people, and studying everything I can get my hands on because if I can't make them accept me, at least I can make them think twice before they try me. I exhale. I'm not sure I want anyone to know all that. The clearing holds this. The wolf holds it too, with the particular patience of something that has all the time there is and isn't spending a single moment of it wanting to be elsewhere. My grandmother's voice comes back to me then. Not a memory exactly. More like a sound that's been living in the back of my head all evening, waiting for a moment quiet enough to be heard. Intelligence can pull you out of most situations, my darling, but it's your heart that will bring you to happiness. I'd thought she was talking about love. Now I think maybe she was talking about this, about the capacity to sit in a clearing with a wolf you've never met and tell it the truth. Thank you, I say. To the wolf, to my grandmother's voice, to the clearing. The wolf rises, moves toward me, and I hold still. Not from fear, from something more like reverence, and stops close enough that I could touch it if I reached out. Those silver blue eyes are level with mine, sitting as I am, and for a moment the world is very simple. Then it steps back, turns, pauses at the edge of the clearing and looks over its shoulder. You're walking me home? I ask. It waits. I stand up, brush frost from my trousers. All right. It walks with me to the edge of the pack, not through the territory, where it would be seen, but along the forest boundary, a path I've walked so many times I know every root and stone. At the tree line it stops, watches me go. I look back once. Those silver blue eyes catch the last of the light. I walk home, sleep better than I have in months. In the morning, there's a delegation at my door. 3 people I've never seen, wearing the house colors of Callan steel, deep navy and silver, standing with the particular uprightness of people who represent someone whose standards are not a matter of opinion. The one in front is a woman with close-cropped gray hair and the calm efficiency of someone who delivers news for a living and has long since stopped editing it. Kayla Freeyard Snowfield, she says. That's me. You are invited to join the Royal Atelier at Callan Steel Palace. Alpha King Cypher Callan Steel extends this invitation personally. You would be joining a team of craftspeople in service of the court. She pauses. The invitation is extended with immediate effect, if you choose to accept. I look at her for a long moment. I think about the clearing in the forest, the stars, the silver blue eyes. I accept, I say. She nods. Before sunset then, I close the door, stand in my kitchen with my back against the wood. Your heart will bring you to happiness. All right, grandmother, I say to the empty room. Let's see. I have to tell my parents who will be over the moon with content and pack everything I hold dear to my heart. My parents have always been ambitious from the time they understood I had a bright mind. Maybe that's why I decided to be an artist with my hands instead of a diplomat. Because they expected me to be bright, even when no wolf of mine would manifest. They loved me, I knew that. But was it unconditional love when you expected someone to be a shape of your ambition? Priscilla will take over in the atelier, and if I decide to return, I have a home waiting for me. I had so much to prepare even though the palace was only a few miles away. Chapter 2. The Eyes That Already Knew. The palace is bigger than I expected and exactly as intimidating as I expected, which makes us even. I've been traveling in a carriage with the delegation, which has given me an hour to ask myself what exactly did I do to trigger such an invitation and be escorted by an entire delegation, art of pale gray stone, under a sky the color of pewter. And the palace is rising on 3 sides of me, like a very beautiful, very pointed argument. The delegation moves, I move with them. Inside, the entrance hall is high-ceilinged and cold in the way of places built to impress rather than to be warm in. Tapestries on the walls. Floors polished to a mirror finish. The smell of beeswax and wood smoke and something underneath. Something older, stone and pine resin, and the particular accumulated weight of a place where significant things have happened for a long time. I file this. I file most things. It's a habit. The woman with the close-cropped gray hair, whose name I've learned is Petra, is walking slightly ahead of me when I notice the other woman. She's standing at the far end of the hall, to the right of a doorway, and she's not doing anything in particular, just standing, watching the new arrivals process in from outside. But something about her makes me look. She's old. Not elderly in the way of people who have simply lived a long time, but old in the way of certain trees and certain stones, as though duration has given her a density most people don't have. Her hair is silver white, her eyes are gray. Not just gray. Gray in the way of deep water, the kind that absorbs light rather than reflecting it. She is looking directly at me, not at the group, not in the general direction of the new arrivals. At me, specifically, with an attention so focused it has a physical quality, like a hand on my shoulder. I meet her gaze. I'm good at not looking away from things. Something moves in her expression. Recognition, but not of the kind that comes from having met someone before. The other kind. The kind that comes from having expected someone. Petra speaks at my elbow. That's Menina Calendel, the court seer. She's staring at me, I say. Yes, says Petra, and moves on as though this requires no further comment. My rooms are in the east wing, small but well appointed, with a workbench along one wall that someone has thought to provide, along with bolts of fabric I didn't ask for, but immediately want to touch. I spend 10 minutes resisting, fail, and spend the next 20 running my hands over the materials with the focused pleasure of someone reuniting with their actual language. There's silk here. Real silk, not the imitation they sell at the Snowfield market, and a wool so fine it weighs almost nothing. And something I don't immediately recognize. A dark fabric with a faint luminescence, like it's holding light it collected somewhere else. I'm in the middle of wondering what that fabric does when I become aware of a presence outside the open window. I go still, then I cross to it and look out. The courtyard below is empty, but the garden beyond, a structured space of clipped hedges and stone paths and bare autumn trees, is not. He's sitting at the edge of the garden, in the shadow of a yew hedge, just visible if you know what you're looking for. The wolf. The same wolf. I know it immediately. The size, the dark coat, the quality of stillness that is nothing like sleep and everything like watching. And the eyes, even from this distance, catch the gray afternoon light and turn it into that particular silver blue. I press my hand flat against the windowsill. The same thing happens in my chest that happened in the clearing, that swinging open, that warmth through the door. Except this time it's stronger. As though the opening is getting easier with practice. As though something in me is learning to do something I forgot I knew how to do. I stay at the window for longer than I should. The reception is that evening, a gathering of pack representatives from across the territory, here at the palace for what Petra calls a cohesion summit, which appears to mean everyone who matters shows up, eats Callansteel food, and reminds each other they're theoretically on the same side. I'm invited as a member of the court atelier, which means I am present but not prominent, which suits me exactly. I wear the dress I traveled in, which I made in the deep rust and cream that I've been returning to lately. Something about the combination feels honest, like colors that don't pretend to be anything they're not. I've done my hair simply. I have no jewelry because I've never bothered with it. Several people look at me when I enter the hall, a few with interest, one or two with the specific narrowed assessment of people wondering who let me in and whether they need to worry about it. I file them all, smile at no one in particular. The hall is warm and loud, and full of the layered complexity of people performing alliance while privately keeping score. I've been at Snowfield pack gatherings my whole life. The same performance, different cast. I find a spot near one of the long tables and take a glass of something warm and spiced and proceed to exist pleasantly. "You're the new seamstress," says a man to my left. He's my age, pack insignia of Dunross on his collar, the specific energy of someone who's had 2 drinks and decided this makes him interesting. "From Snowfield." "Couturier," I say, but yes, Snowfield. He says it like a punchline. That the pack with the... He makes a vague gesture. "The excellent trade routes and outstanding record of midwinter festivals," I say. "Yes, that's the one." He blinks. I smile. He finds somewhere else to be. There's a woman 2 feet away who does something that might be suppressing a laugh. I don't look at her directly. I've found it's better to let these things breathe. I'm on my second glass of the warm drink, half listening to a cluster of pack representatives discussing supply routes, when one of them says something that makes me actually focus. "Valley Crest, Western Pack, border of the Old Forest. I heard it's worse than the last report." A woman's voice low. "How bad?" "Half the pack showing symptoms. Not illness. The healers can't find anything physical. It's like..." A pause, the person choosing their words carefully. "Like something got inside them." "Possession?" Silence. The weighted kind. "They're not saying that word," the woman says, "but they're not saying anything else either." I keep my eyes on my drink and my ears on the conversation, which is a skill I developed at 12 and have been refining ever since. "Something got inside them." I file it. I don't know what to do with it yet, but I file it. He walks into the room and I know before I see him. Not a premonition. More physical than that. The quality of the room changes. Not everyone responds, but enough do. A shift in posture here, an attention recalibrating there. The particular alteration of atmosphere that comes when the most significant person present decides to enter. I turn. Alpha King. Cypher Callansteel is tall. I knew, abstractly, that the Alpha King of this territory would be tall. What I did not know is that tall would feel like such an inadequate word for a man who seems to have been made at a different scale than the rest of the room's contents. In the territories, we've all heard that no she-wolf has ever catched his attention, and that no alpha had dared challenge him too. He's broad, sharp bone structure, dark hair cut short, wearing the deep navy of his house without ceremony, and his eyes. His eyes are silver blue, the specific silver blue of deep water catching moonlight. The specific silver blue that I have been looking at for 2 evenings now across a clearing in a courtyard garden, attached to an entirely different category of creature. My brain performs a rapid and unwelcome sequence of connections. I put it away. I put it away hard, in the specific mental drawer labeled things that are probably not what they look like, and I shut the drawer, and I turn back to my drink. My heart is doing something I didn't authorize. It isn't the mate bond. I've heard people describe the mate bond. The sudden certainty, the pull, the sense of recognition so complete it reorganizes your understanding of what recognition means. I've heard it and filed it under things that happen to other people, specifically people with wolves, which I do not have, so this is something else. Something adjacent. Something that feels like standing at the edge of a very high cliff and discovering you're not afraid of heights the way you thought you were. I take a sip of my drink and concentrate very hard on the grain of the wooden table. He's across the room. He's greeting someone. He's going to stay across the room. Kayla Freeyard of Snowfield. The voice is low, even. The voice of someone who does not need to raise it to be heard. I look up. Alpha King Cypher Callensteel is standing 3 feet away. He is looking at me with an expression that I cannot immediately decode. There are several things in it, but the one that surfaces first is the one I least expected. He looks like he knows me, not knows of me. Not the way people know of the unmated couturière from Snowfield. Knows me. The specific prior knowledge of someone who has been in the same room as me before and is now placing me correctly in their memory. My pulse does something impolite. Your Highness, I say, because it is what you say, because it fills the 3 seconds I need to put my face in order. How is your integration going? I think about Petra's efficiency and the silk on my workbench and the wolf in the garden. Better than expected, I say. The corner of his mouth does something almost too small to be called a movement. Good. The atelier has needed someone with your particular skill. Thank you for the opportunity, I say. It's not something I was expecting. He looks at me steadily. No? I'm a couturière from a mid-sized pack with no court connections and no particular reason to be on anyone's radar. And yet, he says. And yet, I agree. We hold that for a moment. And then I do the thing I've been very carefully not doing. I look at him. Actually look, instead of looking at the space slightly to the left of him that I've been addressing this entire conversation. And my nose does what a nose does when it's paying attention. His scent is pine and cold stone and something darker beneath. Wood smoke, dark earth, winter nights. I know this scent. Have we met? I say. It comes out more directly than I planned, which is unusual for me. I'm normally better at performing the question I actually mean rather than asking it. Before tonight, I mean, I keep thinking. I stop, recalibrate. You have a familiar scent, and your eyes are. I stop again. He doesn't fill the silence. He's very good at not filling silences. Most people rush to fill them. He simply exists in them, unhurried, watching me work my way toward whatever I'm working toward. Then, so slightly it might not technically be a smile. Enjoy the rest of the evening, Kayla of Snowfield. And he moves away, into the crowd, leaving me standing with a warm drink I've forgotten about, and a chest full of things I'm choosing not to name. Not the mate bond. The drawer I put it in has very good hinges. Chapter 3. Who taught you to doubt yourself? The music is good, at least. Someone in Callensteel's court has taste. The ensemble in the corner of the hall is playing something with backbone in it. Real rhythm. The kind of music that acknowledges the body exists and has opinions, rather than the decorative background noise that most court events seem to consider sufficient. Several couples are on the main floor doing justice to it. I am in a corner, not sulking. I want to be clear about that. I am in a corner the way a person stands in a corner when they have found the one spot in the room with adequate sight lines, tolerable ambient noise levels, and no one standing directly behind them making conversation they didn't ask for. I am processing. What I am processing is this. A man looked at me 40 minutes ago, and the fact of his looking has been taking up more cognitive space than I'd like to admit. I'm not accustomed to that. I'm accustomed to being the one who looks, who observes, assesses, files, and moves on. I'm not accustomed to being looked at in a way that feels like being found. I'm also processing the scent. And the eyes. And the entirely impractical series of conclusions that both of those things are pointing toward, which I am not following to their logical end because logic is something I can control, and feelings are not. And this is a distinction I have been making in my own favor for approximately 24 years. You're hiding. The voice comes from my left. Alpha King Cypher Callensteel is leaning against the wall 3 feet away. He's turned slightly toward me. Not fully, which I appreciate, because full-on attention from this man is something I need to be working up to. And there's a glass in his hand that I suspect has been there mostly as a prop. I'm observing, I say. From a corner. The corner has the best sightlines. It also has you in it, which suggests it's less about sightlines and more about distance. I look at him. He looks back. Those silver blue eyes are direct in a way that should feel aggressive and somehow doesn't. They're just honest. Looking at them is like looking at something that has decided transparency is more efficient than performance, and is acting accordingly. "Why do you fight what you're feeling?" he says. Conversational. Easy. Like he's asking about the weather. I take a measured breath. "That's a very personal question for someone I've met once." "Is it?" "Yes. Most people lead with something lighter. The weather, the music, whether the food is adequate." "The food is adequate," he says. "The weather is cold. The music is good." A pause. "You've been standing in this corner for 37 minutes managing something instead of feeling it. You've been counting. I've been aware. Different things, those." I notice that he knows the distinction too. "I'm not fighting anything," I say. Which is technically true in the sense that fighting implies a direct engagement with the opponent. And what I'm doing is more like not acknowledging the opponent's existence and hoping they take the hint. He doesn't argue. He just exists there, unhurried, waiting. It's deeply inconvenient, that quality. Most people you can outlast. You can go quiet, and they fill the silence, and you learn things from what they put in it. He just waits. Like he has done this before, and knows the space will eventually say something honest if you give it long enough. "I'm used to managing things," I say finally. "It's efficient." "What happens when you stop?" "I try not to find out." He's quiet for a moment. "You have a wolf," he says. Still that conversational tone, like he's sharing a minor observation. Like he hasn't just said something that makes the floor tilt. I turn to look at him fully. "I don't," I say. "You do." He's looking at me with that same direct attention. I can hear her. Right now, she's been answering everything you've been deciding not to feel. A pause. "You haven't been listening." My chest is doing something complicated. I have the distinct sensation of being on very familiar ground, my own interior, and discovering there's a room in it I didn't know about. "That's not possible," I say. "I've never..." "Shifted?" "No, but that's not the same thing as not having her. It means she hasn't found her way through yet." He says it matter-of-factly. No pity in it, just information. There's a difference between a wolf that isn't there and a wolf that hasn't been let in. I'm not going to think about this right now. I am going to put this in the drawer too. Except the drawer is getting very full. "Who told you that you didn't have one?" he asks. "No one told me, it's just evident. The absence of..." "Who taught you," he says, quiet and precise, "to doubt what you feel?" And that lands differently. It doesn't land like a question. It lands like the first accurate sentence someone has said in a conversation that's been going on for years. Like the thing you've been arguing around, finally named. I'm quiet. He doesn't fill it. I am 24 years old, and I have been in Snowfield my whole life, and I built a life there. A good life. A life I made with my hands and my mind and my tongue. And somewhere in the building of it, I also built this particular wall. And I've been so busy maintaining it that I'd stopped thinking of it as a choice. My alpha. Valerian appears at his elbow with the timing of someone who does this professionally, and has never once been thanked for it. He's lean and precise, the court advisor, and his expression is the expression of a man who has identified 3 competing priorities and ranked them in order before opening his mouth. Lady Fiona of the Western Territory has requested an audience, tonight, if possible. Alpha King Cypher Callansteel doesn't look away from me immediately. There's a beat, brief, specific, the beat of a man deciding something. And then he turns to Valerian. "Arrange a meeting tomorrow morning," he says. "I'm occupied this evening." Lady Fiona expressed some urgency. "Tomorrow morning, Valerian?" "Of course." Valerian recedes. Then Alpha King Cypher Callansteel stills. He doesn't turn back, but he knows I left. I've moved. Not far. I'm not fleeing, I'm relocating. But I've put 8 feet and 2 cluster of people between us, and I'm talking to someone, a woman from one of the river packs whose name I already know from the atelier's client list, and I'm being perfectly attentive and present, and not standing in a corner having the walls of my interior architecture quietly rearranged. I feel him know I'm gone without looking for me. The specific quality of attention from across the room that says, noted. A pause. Valerian. His voice just audible. Tell Lady Fiona I'll see her tonight. I sip my drink. The woman from the river pack is saying something about fabric weights for winter riding. I focus on it. I give it my full attention. My wolf, if there is a wolf, which is something I am not committing to just yet, is doing something in my chest that I choose to describe as indigestion. The evening proceeds. So does the drawer, which is now substantially past capacity. Chapter 4. Uncovering oneself. Lady Fiona is not what I expected. I don't know what I expected. Someone requesting an urgent audience with the Alpha King of the territory at a diplomatic reception conjures a certain image, and it involves more composure and less the specific exhaustion of someone who has been holding something together by sheer force of will for longer than is sustainable. She's my age, maybe a few years older. Dark hair, a Luna's bearing, that particular quality of someone accustomed to standing beside power. But tonight it's wearing thin at the edges, the way fabric does when it's been pulled too hard in too many directions. I know this because I can see her from where I'm standing. She arrived 20 minutes after I relocated from my corner, and the room rearranged itself around her arrival, the way rooms did when something significant came through the door. Alpha King Cypher Callansteel met her near the entrance. I watched. Not obviously, not in a way anyone would notice. And what I saw was a conversation conducted in low voices with the controlled urgency of people who have agreed not to alarm the room. Then he left with her, and the evening continued around the absence of both of them, which is what evenings do. I went to bed. I told myself I slept. In the morning, Petra finds me in my workroom at the hour I've established as mine. Early, before the atelier proper opens, when the light through the east window is still deciding what it wants to be, and the palace is quiet enough to think in. I'm working with the strange dark fabric, the one with the luminescence. I've been trying to understand it, what it wants to be, what it's asking for. And I've developed a theory that it needs to be cut against the grain in a specific way, that the luminescence follows the thread direction, that you have to work with it rather than imposing a pattern on it. This is how most good things work, in my experience. You figure out what something actually is, and then you let it be that. Alpha King Cypher Callansteel request your presence, Petra says from the doorway. The meeting room off the main corridor. Now. I set down the fabric. What kind of meeting? The kind he doesn't brief me on. The meeting room is small and deliberately neutral. No house insignia on the walls, no hierarchy built into the furniture arrangement. A round table, 4 chairs, a fire. Alpha King Cypher Callansteel is already there. So is Valerian. So is Lady Fiona, who looks marginally less destroyed than last night, which I take as evidence of either sleep or very good internal resources. And in the 4th chair sits Menina Calendal, the gray-eyed woman who stared at me in the entrance hall yesterday. Up close, she's even harder to age. The gray eyes are the same temperature as yesterday, which is to say they have no temperature at all, in the way of things that have learned to observe without reacting. She looks at me when I enter, and whatever she was doing with her expression before, she stops doing it. We look at each other for a moment. Sit, says Alpha King Cypher Callansteel. I sit. Lady Fiona. He addresses her directly. Tell her what you told me last night. Lady Fiona's hands are flat on the table. She's placed them deliberately, I think, because she needs them somewhere she can see them. Valley Crest is my home pack, she says. Her voice is steady. Whatever it costs her, it's steady. We're on the western border. The old forest runs along our southern edge. It's always been there. We've always lived alongside it. Our elders say it's older than the pack. Older than anything with a name. She pauses. 3 weeks ago, people started changing. Changing how, I say. She glances at me. Something in her settles. I think she appreciated the directness. Confused at first, then frightened. Not frightened the way you'd be frightened of something you could see. Frightened of something inside. Like they couldn't trust their own thoughts. She exhales. Then violent. Not all of them. Maybe half the pack. But the half that changed completely. They don't sleep. They speak in voices that aren't theirs. Her jaw tightens. My husband is among them. Silence. The healers can't find anything physical, Lady Fiona continues. No illness, no injury, nothing they have a name for. She looks at Alpha King Cypher Callan Steel. What they have found is that it gets worse near the forest. Whatever is happening, its center is in there. Alpha King Cypher Callan Steel's expression gives nothing away, which I'm starting to understand is what his expression does when he's thinking hardest. Possession, I say. The word from last night's overheard conversation. Everyone at the table looks at me. I heard it mentioned last night, I say. The word people weren't saying. Lady Fiona's chin dips. Yes, Valerian shifts in his chair. He's the kind of man who is very comfortable with problems that have structural solutions and less comfortable with problems that don't. And his body language right now is doing a lot of work to communicate this. We can send a contingent, he says. Armed. If there are hostile forces using the forest as a staging point. It isn't that kind of problem, Menina Calendel says. It's the first time she's spoken. Her voice is low and carries the specific authority of someone who doesn't use it often and expects it to land when they do. Everyone at the table waits. When Lady Fiona arrived last night, Menina says, I had a vision. She pauses, and in the pause I get the impression she's deciding how much to say and in what order. I've been having fragments of it since 2 days ago, since... Her gray eyes move to me. Someone else arrived. I go still. I saw a woman, Menina says, standing at the edge of the old forest. Werewolf, fully shifted, and large. Gray coat. Eyes the color of... She looks at me steadily. Yours. The silence in the room has a new quality. She had her paws on the earth, Menina continues, and light was moving from them into the ground, spreading through the soil the way roots spread. She pauses. Whatever she was doing, it was working. The darkness in the forest was pulling back. Not fleeing, pulling back, like it recognized something in her it couldn't stand against. You're describing Kayla, Alpha King Cypher Callan Steel says. Not a question. I'm describing what I saw. I look at Menina. Menina looks at me. Her gray eyes are entirely serious and entirely calm, which is more disconcerting than alarm would be. I'm a couturier, I say. Not defensively. I'm not defensive about it. I make things out of fabric. I'm very good at it. But I don't have... I stop. Who taught you to doubt what you feel? I push the thought aside. She doesn't know yet, Menina says, to Alpha King Cypher Callan Steel, in the patient tone of someone explaining a delayed shipment. Who she is. A pause. Her intellect has been her wall. It's also been the loudest voice in the room for 24 years. A survival mechanism. Her wolf hasn't been able to get a word in. Then we teach her, Alpha King Cypher Callan Steel says. We tell her the shape of it, Menina says. The understanding has to come from inside. That's the nature of this kind of gift. She looks at me again. What I can tell you, and what you can verify for yourself with minimal effort, is that you have been leaving traces of something in everything you make. Your clients don't just feel better dressed. They feel different, I say, slowly, precisely, like a thing being lifted out of a dark drawer. I think about Mrs. Aldrin, who told me that whenever she wears the coat I made her last winter, she'd feel her bones strengthening and meant it. I filed it as sentiment. I think about the Dunross boy who came in hunched and left standing straight, who wrote to tell me the waistcoat had changed something, and I'd thought he meant the fit. I think about 12 people, 24, who've sat in my small atelier in Snowfield and come out looking, not just better dressed, but lighter. I'd been telling myself it was confidence, that good clothes gave people confidence. You imprint healing into the fabric, Menina says. You always have. You do it without knowing you're doing it, which is actually evidence of how ingrained it is. You can't help it any more than a river can help flowing downhill. She pauses. What you can learn to do is direct it. Amplify it. Use it intentionally. How long do we have? Alpha King Cypher Callensteel asks. The possession is spreading, Lady Fiona says quietly. If it follows the same pattern it's been following, 2 weeks, perhaps 3, before the whole pack is affected. We leave in 3 days, Menina says. That's the time I need. I'll lead the contingent, Alpha King Cypher Callensteel says. Menina looks at him with the expression of a woman who knew this was coming and has her response ready. This will not be resolved by force. I know that's not what you wanted to hear. I know what I heard. His voice is even. I'm also not sending 2 women and a healer into this alone. The ghost of something moves across Menina's face. 3 days, she says. 3 days, he agrees. I've been sitting through this conversation with the specific quality of attention I apply to things I'm working out. Not passive, not detached, just gathering, processing, running the thread through my fingers to find where the grain goes. Menina, I say. She looks at me. When do we start? Something happens in her gray eyes. Still not warm, exactly, but the temperature shifts, fractionally, like an early morning before the sun has committed. Now, she says, if you're ready. I look at the empty chair across from me where Lady Fiona is sitting with her hands flat on the table and her husband's name written in the space behind her eyes. Yes, I say. Chapter 5, The Blessed Hands. Menina's rooms are in the oldest part of the palace. Of course they are. The corridor leading to them is stone that has been worn smooth by centuries of feet, and the air changes quality about halfway down. Gets thicker, almost, more present, the way air felt in the forest clearing. Like being in a place that has held a lot of intention and retained it. Her door opens before I knock. Come in, she says from inside. I push the door open. The room is not what I expected. I'd prepared myself for the theatrical version, herbs and bones and something burning in a bowl. What I find instead is a room that looks primarily like a very well-organized study. Books on every surface, maps on the walls, but not geographical maps. Maps of something else, territories I don't have names for. A fire. 2 chairs arranged at an angle that suggests conversation rather than performance. And a workbench, running the length of the far wall, covered with materials I recognize and some I don't. I stop in the doorway. You have a workbench, I say. So do you. She's already sitting in one of the chairs. Did you think the 2 things were separate? Making and knowing? I don't have an answer for that, which is unusual enough that I take the chair without further comment. Let's start with what you already know, Menina says, which is more than you think it is. Tell me what happens when you make something. I consider this. I'm accustomed to describing my process in practical terms. Grain direction, tension, the specific conversation between hand and fabric that determines whether a seam will sit flat or pull. But she's not asking about that. It starts with looking, I say, at the person, not just the measurements, the whole of them, the way they stand, what they're carrying. I pause. Sometimes I think I'm dressing who they could be rather than who they're presenting as. Menina nods, not surprised. And while you're working, she asks, I think. Or not think. It's more like I'm somewhere else. Somewhere that's still connected to what I'm making but isn't the front of my mind. I turn my hands over in my lap, looking at them. I've always assumed it was just focus. It's focus, Menina agrees. The way breathing is focus. It happens. And underneath it, something else happens too. She leans forward slightly. Hold out your hands. I do. She looks at them for a long moment, not touching them. Just looking, with those gray eyes that seem to be receiving information that has nothing to do with sight. Close your eyes, she says. I'd rather not. I know. Her voice is dry. Close your eyes. I close them. I feel her fingers on my forehead, and she briefly speaks a language I've never heard of. It sends shivers spiraling down my spine. I almost open my eyes, stunned, but I catch myself. Think of someone you've made something for, she says. Someone who came to you carrying something heavy. Don't tell me who. Just hold them in mind. Mrs. Aldrin, with her 6 months inside, and the coat I made her from deep charcoal wool, and the particular care I'd put into the shoulders, because she held her grief in her shoulders, and I wanted them to feel held. Now think about what you wanted for them. Not just warmth, not just craft. Something more specific. I had wanted her to feel what it was like to be seen, not pitied. Seen. I had put that intention into every stitch with the single-mindedness of someone who has spent their whole life wishing someone would do it for them. Open your eyes, Menina says. I open them. My hands are glowing. Not dramatically. Not the theatrical version of glowing. Not blazing. Not golden bright. A faint luminescence, pale and warm, moving between my fingers like something trying to find its way out. Like the fabric in my workroom. I look at it for a long moment. Oh, I say. Yes, says Menina. That's been there the whole time? When you're crafting, yes. She sits back. You access it through emotion, specifically through the desire to help, through care, if you want to use the direct word. Your intellect suppresses it in most contexts. But when you're making something for someone, you let your guard down. You start caring, and caring is a doorway, I say. She looks at me with something that isn't quite approval, but is adjacent to it. Yes. The light in my hands fades as I watch it, going back to wherever it came from, which is apparently inside me. I flex my fingers. They feel warm. The warmth spreads up my wrists, my forearms, into my chest. And there it is, that opening sensation, the door swinging wide, and beneath it something that has been murmuring for 2 days now gets marginally louder. Not words, more like a presence, a warmth that is mine but not only mine. Something that has been there for 24 years, saying things I've been talking over. I yawn enormously. Good, says Menina. I'm sorry, I say, that's your body releasing stagnant energy. It's been holding patterns for a very long time. Let it. I yawn again. My eyes are watering from the size of it. When you access the gift intentionally, Menina says, settling into the practical with the ease of a teacher who has been here before, you'll feel a warmth first. Let it build. Don't analyze it. Analysis interrupts the flow. The skill is in holding your analytical mind to one side, which I understand will be the hardest part for you, because my analytical mind is currently the load-bearing wall of my entire personality. Exactly. Not unkind, just accurate. We're not removing it. We're teaching it that its job is to translate what you receive from the heart, not to take charge. And the guides? You mentioned guides in the meeting. Every soul walks with allies from the invisible realms, Menina says. Healers, guides, spirits who assist. You'll learn to sense them. For now, all you need to know is that you don't do this alone. Otherwise, you'll burn yourself to exhaustion. A pause. That light in your hands? You were drawing on help you didn't know you were drawing on. Every time. I have unlocked your inner vision. Now you can see. I sit with that. Every hem I ever stitched. Every shoulder seam I set with my intention towards someone else's well-being. Every piece of myself I put into fabric for someone who would never know it was there. Not alone. One more thing, Menina says, and her voice shifts. Gets quieter. Gets the specific weight of something important. Can you hear her? My wolf. Yes. I go inward. Not the analytical inward. Not problem-solving, not assessment. The other kind. The receiving kind. The warmth in my chest is still there from the exercise. I let it be. Don't examine it. Don't name it or catalog it or put it in a drawer. Just listen. Faint. Very faint. Like something that has been trying to knock on a door that was also a wall, and has finally understood that if it stops knocking and starts breathing, someone might hear. Not words. Not sound. A presence. A warmth within the warmth. A sense of something enormous and patient waiting in a space that has always been there inside me, that I furnished and called home, but that had a second room I never opened. My eyes fill, I blink it back. Yes, I say. My voice comes out different than I expected. Menina is quiet for a moment. She's been waiting a long time, she says. Gentle, for someone whose default setting is not gentle. She's not angry about it. Wolves understand patience better than people do. I nod. My throat is doing something I choose not to examine. 3 days, Menina says. Rest for now, integrate, we continue at the 4th bell. Chapter 6. The first shift. I have never slept so much in my life, like my body is recalibrating to a new identity. And I feel different. More. I move different. My senses that were always present have sharpened so much I wonder if my whole life I was the one who decided to dull down them in order to feel safer in a world where I was different. The I did that precisely because I was someone who felt too much. The second day, in the late afternoon, belongs to Alpha King Cypher Callansteel. He finds me in the outer courtyard, the larger one, away from the palace gardens, where the stone gives way to open ground, and the tree line begins. I'm standing at the edge of it, not quite inside the forest, and not quite outside it, which is where I tend to end up when I'm processing something that won't fit indoors. I smell him before I see him. Menina says you're ready, he says, coming to stand beside me, not in front of me, beside, which I appreciate. Menina says a lot of things with more confidence than I feel they warrant, I say. She's never been wrong. That's what all seers have going for them. I look at the trees. She told me what this involves. The shift. I pause. I've been not shifting for 24 years. I'm not convinced my body knows how. It does, he says. She was always there. This is just giving her room. He says it the way he says most things, with the calm certainty of someone who has established the facts and sees no reason to dramatize them. It's maddening, and also, I find, oddly settling. You'll feel the pull first, he says, like something stretching. Don't resist it. I resist things reflexively. I know. Something in his voice. You can tell that reflex to wait, now breathe. I breathe out. And I do the thing Menina has been teaching me. I let the analytical mind step to one side, just slightly, just enough. I find the warmth in my chest. I let it build. Nothing comes. Release the fear of the unknown. I hear my wolf murmurs. Then I decide to surrender my fears to my invisible guides I don't know yet, to the moon goddess, to my ancestors, to everything that is. The pull comes almost immediately. I'd have said it was painful if I'd been asked to predict it. It isn't. It's more like a joint that's been locked in one position for too long, releasing. The particular relief of movement after stillness. My body has opinions about this that my mind was not consulted on. And it turns out my body has been waiting with the patience of something that has had very little choice. The shift takes me faster than I expected, and then I'm on 4 feet on cold ground, and the world is completely different. Not worse. Not frightening. More. More sound. More scent. More information arriving from every surface simultaneously. The forest ahead rich with a complexity of signal that is almost overwhelming, and is also, entirely, exactly right. Like putting on glasses for the first time, except it's the whole world and not just the visual field. I shake out my coat, gray. I catch a glimpse of my own paw and stop. Look at it, this fact of me that has always been true, and that I am meeting for the first time. A sound beside me. I look up. Alpha King Cypher Callansteel's wolf is enormous and dark and looking at me with those silver blue eyes, and in this form the mate bond is not a thing I can put in a drawer. It is simply present. The way gravity is present. Not something you experience as a choice, just something that is true, that has always been true, that your body knows before your mind gets to have opinions about it. He waits, watching me take myself in, take him in, take the whole reconfigured world in. Then he steps forward and puts his forehead against mine. Just that. Just the warmth of it, and the weight, and the very simple fact of 2 wolves in a courtyard at the edge of a forest, and the quiet between us that is not empty. I close my eyes. When I open them, I know he's going to run. I know it before he moves. Some communication that travels below language, the way the best conversations do. He lifts his head. His eyes catch mine. So we run. The forest in this form is indescribable in the terms I usually use for things. Later, human again, sitting under a canopy of bare branches with the last light coming through at an angle that turns everything gold. I try to find words for it and come up short. It was like every single thing I've ever made with my hands. That feeling of the right material and the right intention, and the thing becoming what it was supposed to be. Except it was me. The material and the maker and the making all at once. We've been sitting here for 20 minutes. He hasn't pushed conversation, which I've come to understand is just how he is. He creates the space and lets what belongs in it arrive. You knew, I say, in the forest at Snowfield, that first night. My wolf knew immediately. I felt a pull that night. I shifted before deciding, and I let my wolf guide me in the wild. And I knew you weren't ready, he says. I knew something was between you and yourself. Pushing it would have made you run. I think about the clearing, about sitting on the cold ground and talking to a wolf, being more honest than I'd been with anyone in years. Because I thought it couldn't hear me. Not really. Not in the way that counted. I think about what I said. About not wanting a mate because they'd see the 12-year-old in the corner. About being comfortable with the absence of something I thought I didn't have. You had me brought to the palace, I say. Yes, no hesitation. The invitation wasn't coincidental. No, you could have introduced yourself in the forest. I could have. He's quiet for a moment. You were being... A pause, as though choosing the word with care. Yourself. Completely. For the first time in a while, I think. I didn't want to end that. Something in my chest does the thing it does. I've spent 24 years deciding what I would and wouldn't let in. I've been very organized about it. The categories are well maintained. And here is this man who watched me be unguarded in a forest and decided the right thing to do was protect that, rather than use it. I'm not sure I have a drawer large enough. I've been thinking about you, he says, since that first night. I want to be clear about that. He doesn't look at me while he says it, which I think is deliberate, giving me room to receive it without it being a confrontation. I want to be clear about what I want, so you can decide what you want with accurate information. That's a very organized way of telling someone you like them, I say. You appreciate organization. He's not wrong. I look at him. At the profile of him, sharp in the evening light. Completely still the way he's always completely still. The man who heard me say I was comfortable with being alone and responded by giving me a clearing and stars and time. I'm not used to this, I say. Being wanted. Not the version of me that makes good clothes and has good comebacks. The other version. The 12-year-old in the corner, he says, quiet, without any quality of pity in it. She's in there, I say. She's always in there. I know. He turns his head then and looks at me. Those silver blue eyes, at this distance, in this light, are the eyes of a person who has been paying attention. She's the one I'm asking. I have nothing ready for that. I've always had something ready. It's my best skill. The rapid assembly of something appropriate for any situation. The words already forming before the situation has fully arrived. I am empty-handed. So I do the thing I've been learning for 2 days. I stop managing. I let the warmth come up. I let the door swing open. And I kiss him. It's the first thing I've done in a long time that came entirely from the other side of the wall. No calculation, no preparation, no filing system. Just the simple, total fact of wanting and deciding to act on it, and the particular quality of rightness that comes when you stop arguing with gravity. He kisses me back like he's been patient long enough, and is done performing patience. It feels like coming home. Being home. I feel hit burn low in my belly as he deepens the kiss. Then he inhales sharply. I sense his restraint as he pulls back, his eyes burning silver blue. Both our chest heaving. The light has gotten more golden, and my heart is conducting itself with a freedom I don't have prior experience of. I'm not used to feeling this much, I say. My voice is steady, which surprises me, I know. He brushes a strand of red hair back from my face. How does it feel about tomorrow? I think about it honestly. Like uncertainty, I say. Like entering a zone that has been restricted until now. He looks at me for a long moment. There's a question in his eyes. And he decides to not push. Instead, he presses his forehead to mine. We stay like that until the light finishes its descent. Tomorrow starts a new chapter I have no idea about, but somehow I know an army stands at our side. Chapter 7. What demons fear most. Valley Crest doesn't look like a pack in trouble from the outside. That's the first thing I notice when we arrive that morning. That the houses are still standing. The paths are still maintained. The communal structures are intact. If you weren't paying attention, you might not notice anything wrong. I'm paying attention. The quality of the air here is different from anywhere I've been. Heavier. Not in the weather sense. The sky is clear, the wind is cold and straightforward. But in the atmospheric sense, the way Menina's corridor had a kind of weight to it. Except Menina's corridor felt like intention accumulated. This feels like something pressing inward. Something that wants the space it doesn't have. Pack members watch us arrive from doorways and windows. Some of their faces are fine. Present. Worried. The expression of people living through something they don't understand. Others. I file others and move on. Luna Fiona meets us at the edge of the village. She looks like someone who has not slept in 3 days and has made a private decision about how to spend the time this buys her. Thank you for coming, she says. How many? He asks. 37 showing symptoms. 12 have left we don't know where. 7, like my husband, are contained in the healer's room. The forest. She looks past us both, south, where the tree line is visible a half-mile distant. Even from here I can feel it. It's getting stronger at night. Alpha King Cypher Callensteel's jaw sets. He looks at Menina. Menina is looking at me. Tonight, she begins. When darkness falls completely, that's when the line between reality and what's pushing against it is the thinnest. That's when our plan will either succeed or fail. What should I do? I start to ask. I'll walk you through it, she replies. But Kayla, there's something important you need to grasp before we head into that forest. I pause, waiting for her to continue. What's lurking in there, what has slipped through that barrier, can't be forced out. Not by the soldiers of Alpha King Cypher Callensteel, and not by any physical weapon. She locks eyes with me. Fear only makes it stronger. Anger feeds it. Hatred is the exact vibe it needs to take root. She takes a breath. The only thing it can't withstand is the strongest force of all. Love. I look at her, surprised. You're serious? That's not just a saying? It's the most straightforward truth I've ever shared, she assures me. Alpha King Cypher Callensteel glances my way, as if weighing whether to argue with this notion. But whatever he sees in Menina's expression convinces him that it's not worth the effort. What does that mean for us? I inquire. It means that when you drop that protection, you can't do it from a place of wanting to fight what's inside. You have to approach it from a place of... She searches for the right words. Unconditional welcome. A love that says, you can't harm what I cherish, not out of anger, but from something far greater than the threat you're trying to keep at bay. I'll help set the stage for us. I think about Mrs. Aldrin's coat, about seeing the potential in people rather than just their outward appearances, about caring for someone quietly, without needing recognition, simply because it was the right thing to do for someone in need. I recognize that feeling, I say. Menina studies me for a moment. Yes, she replies, I know you do. The forest at night feels completely different. I mean that literally. The trees, the ground, the layout is all the same. Yet what we step into after dark is a world apart from the forest I'm familiar with. The change isn't visible. It's palpable. The air is thick with sorrow, and it feels charged, almost like a current pushing us to turn back. Menina has brought us wool coats to keep us warm, with herbs tucked into our belts for protection against unwanted connections. Alpha King Cypher Callensteel stands a couple of paces behind me, his presence a grounding force in this unsettling environment. Menina is right beside me. 7 guards accompany us, but they've been told to maintain a perimeter and not to engage with anything they encounter. Orders given with the composed demeanor of soldiers who have been instructed on tough matters by their alpha and are processing it all internally. We make our way to the heart of the woods. I can tell we've reached the spot when that heavy feeling shifts into something more defined. It's like it gains focus, like it's aware of us. Whatever's in here has been conscious of our presence since we stepped into the trees, and it's just waiting to see what we're all about before making a move. "Here," Menina says, stopping in her tracks. "Shut your eyes," she instructs. Not because you have to, but because your eyes will try to interpret what's around us. Right now, it's all about how you feel. I obey and close my eyes. The warmth in my chest has been building since we entered the forest, almost like something inside me sensed this moment was coming and got ready for it. I find it the way Menina taught me. No analyzing, no labeling, just let it exist. "Picture someone from our group," Menina suggests. "Someone who's been impacted. You've seen them." I have. I think of a woman I noticed standing in a doorway when we arrived. Her face was there, but her eyes seemed distant, like she was being occupied by an uninvited guest. I focus on her, not her emptiness, but her essence. I remember how she leaned against the doorframe, the way her hands gripped it, the muscle memory of being in her own space. The warmth amplifies, flowing down my arms and into my hands. I open my eyes. The light between my fingers shines brighter than it did in Menina's study. It's pale, warm, and seems to have its own direction, something that feels beyond just me. Just like Menina said, we're never alone in this. I crouch down, pressing my palms flat against the ground. Suddenly, a cry rises up. We can't see anything, but a chill wind sweeps through us. The guards start scanning the area, weapons drawn, even though they know they won't help. I can feel Cypher getting ready to shift. My heart races, and uncertainty washes over me. "Shift, stand your ground, and don't waver," Menina urges. "I'll take care of them." As the cries multiply, I hear her chanting that language she used before, instantly transporting me back to that moment. And I let go. I shift and feel the earth beneath my paws. I close my eyes and reach out to all the spirit guides that have ever accompanied me. That sense of certainty returns, and I feel power surging through my paws, not from anger, not from fear, but from the same energy I put into every stitch, every seam, every shoulder crafted for someone bearing too much weight. The simple radical truth that this being matters. This land matters. What resides here deserves protection. Not because I'm fighting for it, but because I love it. The light seeps into the ground and spreads outwards. Menina's chanting grows louder. I can feel a protective force emanating from her, enveloping all of us. I can feel it shifting, like warmth spreading through cold stone, slowly but surely. It travels through the roots and soil, reaching those hidden spots beneath the forest floor where that heavy presence has been lingering. And then it retreats, like a shadow pulling back to reveal a grassy field. Not all at once, not in a rush. More like something adapting to an unfriendly space, finding its footing, realizing that every corner is met with the same warmth. Time slips by. Now Menina starts talking. Gradually, the thick air changes. It loses its heaviness and just becomes regular air. I let out a breath. Then Cypher softly says, "Kayla." I open my eyes, shift back, and he wraps a warm coat around me right away. At the edge of our torchlight, there's a figure, not a wolf. Not something I can name. A man, or something that looks like one, standing between 2 trees, like someone who's been here for a while, contemplating whether to stick around. "Kressendorf," Menina says, not loudly, just stating a fact. The figure turns its head. When the torchlight hits its eyes, something feels off. Not just the red color, but the angle and the emptiness of what's looking back. "Lord Kressendorf brought someone in," Menina explains to me, calm and steady. "A sorcerer. They opened the portal for resources. There's gold buried beneath this forest, quite a bit of it. and the old forest has its defenses. They thought bringing things through would weaken those defenses. She pauses. Instead, it weakened him. Can he be brought back? Menina takes a moment before answering. He'd have to want to come back, she replies. The soul has to make that choice. Any healing or miracle hinges on that first step. It's a personal decision. I glance at the figure between the trees. I extend the warmth anyway, sending it toward him as I would to anyone, without conditions, without a scorecard, without the idea that he deserves it. Not because I've deemed him worthy. That's not how it works. The warmth doesn't judge. I ask my guides to help the entity within him find its way to the right dimensions. It connects with something inside him and nothing. A door with nothing behind it. Not locked, just empty. Something in my chest knows what Menina is about to say before she even says it. Menina. The usage of his form went with the entity, not leaving him alone. Upon clearing the land, it lost its anchor, finding its place. He took it with him. The figure between the trees fades away, not in a dramatic way, more like morning fog, just becoming irrelevant as the warmth spreads around it. Alpha King Cypher Callansteel stays quiet for a moment beside me. The gold, he finally says, still there. They couldn't start digging before the pack left, Menina replies. The forest's protections are still intact, actually stronger now. She looks at me. They recognize who laid them down. I glance down at my hands. The daylight has slipped away. My palms rest on my thighs, and there's frost blanketing the ground where I stood with 4 others, and the forest has returned to its natural state, ancient, present, and aware in its own slow manner, just being itself. The folks in the pack, I say, the ones impacted, and the one who's missing. They'll find their way back, Menina replies. Some tonight, others in the coming days. Those who ran will regain their spirit. The entity drew power from the forest's anchor. Without that anchor, she gestures vaguely. And what about Fiona's husband, the Alpha? He'll be back. There's a depth to her voice. He already is. Alpha King Cypher Callansteel stands at the clearing's edge, looking at me with a look I've only caught glimpses of before. Not the calm exterior or the steady authority, but the person beneath all that. The one who waited in the forest and didn't reveal himself because I was finally being truthful. Kayla of Snowfield, he says. Cypher, I respond. Are you okay? I gaze at the forest, at my hands, at the clear sky peeking through the trees, the same stars that shone over Snowfield, unchanged and patient, regardless of what's happening below. Yes, I reply, I think I really am. Chapter 8, The Luna Rises. After 3 days, I sorted out the forest events. The important details are clear, and I have the facts. The challenge was integrating the overwhelming details, like warmth spreading through a cold stone. We've made our way back to Callansteel. Valleycrest feels a bit more at ease now. It's not completely mended overnight, but the heaviness has lifted, and the pack is slowly returning to normal, just like people do after a tough time. At dinner the night before we left, Luna Fiona's husband held her hand. She lingered there for a while, clutching onto something she'd been afraid to accept. I understand that feeling now. I'm in my workspace when Menina finds me. It's 3 days after the forest incident, just before dawn, and I'm working with this glowing fabric because I've finally grasped what it wants to become. It wants to be a cloak, heavy, generous. The kind of piece that has protection woven into every thread, and I mean that literally now, in a way I didn't before. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm adding in. Menina stands in the doorway, observing the fabric in my hands. Good, she comments. For whom? I ask. You'll figure it out when you're done. I look at her. You already have an idea. I know what I saw in the vision, she replies. I can't always predict if what I see will come true. She pauses. But I feel pretty confident about this one. I set the fabric down and look at my hands in the dim light. You mentioned when I arrived, I say, that I was a girl who grew up not knowing who she was, that my intellect was my way of surviving. Yes. What did I survive? Menina takes a beat, and for a moment, the room hangs in silence like a thick fog. She strides across the space and plops herself into the chair I reserve for clients. The premium one, the kind that cradles you just right, making you feel all cozy and at ease, and fixes me with a gaze that could cut glass. The same struggle that countless gifted souls endure, she says, her voice steady. You've learned to shrink yourself down to the tiniest version of you. Sure, it kept you safe, but it also boxed you in, kept you away from everything that matters. I gaze at the fabric in front of me. In the dim pre-dawn light, it barely glimmers, but it's definitely there, like a whisper of potential. My grandmother was onto something, I muse. She always said it was the heart that leads the way. She sounds like someone who really understood you, she says, and I can't help but think she might be right. I ponder this, reflecting on the woman who told a little red-haired girl that the heart was a gateway, fully aware the girl wouldn't grasp it for decades. But she said it anyway. Later that evening, Cypher finds me lounging in the outer courtyard. He has that look of someone who's been biding his time, waiting for the exact right moment to pounce. Walk with me, he commands, and it's not a request, it's a declaration. We tread toward the forest's edge, a path I've grown intimately familiar with. The chilling bite of the air, the transition from stone to frost-bitten ground, and the pine-scented air creeping in like an old friend. He halts where the courtyard meets the wild. I've got something to ask you, he states, and I raise an eyebrow, intrigued. And just so you know, he adds, his tone sharp and precise. Classic Cypher. Whatever you say won't change what I declared in the woods. What I feel for you stands firm, no matter what. All right, I reply, bracing myself. Be my Luna. He says it like it's the most straightforward thing in the universe. My queen. Not because the council is breathing down my neck for a decision, or because of the Valley Crest mess, but because you are... He hesitates, and in that pause, I catch a glimpse of the weight behind his words. The first person I've genuinely wanted to build something real with. Not some strategic ploy. Not a politically savvy move. His silver blue eyes lock onto mine. Something authentic. I look at this man, who embraced my honesty in a shadowy glen and safeguarded it rather than weaponizing it, who waited patiently while I unearthed my own identity, who asked the 12-year-old me if I was ready instead of demanding a performance. And I do the thing that used to terrify me, but is slowly becoming second nature. I swing that door wide open. Yes, I breathe out. He exhales, not dramatically, just a quiet sigh of relief, like someone who was certain yet still needed to hear the words. Just one condition, I throw in, raising a playful eyebrow. He looks at me, curious. The cloak I'm crafting, I declare. You have to wear it. A flicker of surprise dances across his face, then a smile. Done, he says, kissing me and sealing our unspoken pact. Fast forward 2 weeks, and the mating ceremony is approaching. I've met all pack representatives, created 3 new masterpieces for clients, and had an insightful talk with my wolf, now living together after 24 years. She's patient, showing understanding. She's been waiting all this time. No resentment, no anger for the years I closed the door. She simply held that ember of warmth in my chest, whispering things I often overlooked. And guess what? She's also wickedly funny. Who would have thought? I'm not sure what I expected from the wolf I didn't know I had, but the spirit sharing my body has opinions about fabric choices, passionate feelings about the great outdoors, and a rock-solid belief that the Dunross representative at the summit was nowhere near as fascinating as he fancied himself to be. We hit it off immediately. She's the extended version of my essence, my spirit, my emotions, my heart. The ceremony unfolds in the forest. Of course it does. Not just any forest. Our forest, the sacred grove that witnessed the whole saga kick off. Cypher orchestrated it. And when he revealed the location, I fell silent for a heartbeat, just locking eyes with him, and he met my gaze with the look of someone who knew precisely what he was doing. The night is nothing short of magical. The stars are outrageous, way too many, way too bright, as if they got the memo that something monumental was happening and decided to turn up the brightness to 11. Menina officiates the ceremony, weaving together the common tongue and the ancient language. Pack representatives encircle us, their torches flickering like fireflies in the night. My parents are present, beaming with pride. Luna Fiona is there with her alpha, standing tall. When the sacred words have been spoken and Cypher marked my neck, I feel his head away from mine, his gaze intense. Luna Kayla Callensteel, he pronounces, my new name rolling off his tongue like a vow. Wow, that's gonna take some getting used to, I chuckle. You're far too modest, he replies, a smirk dancing on his lips. Grandma, I'm here, I found it. Contrary to my expectations, the past weeks has revealed unexpected aspects, a gift of the wolf and the man who guarded my vulnerability. These elements do not match my idealized Snowfield life of polished outfits, sharp repartee, and organized drawers. But this feels like the shape of something timeless, the essence I was meant for before I decided it was safer to hide. I let myself embrace happiness. I'm not accustomed to it yet, but I'm certain I'll master it with practice.